Are you in the HubSpot ecosystem and looking to engage with the industrial and manufacturing space? Are you in the industrial and manufacturing space looking to learn more about how HubSpot can elevate your business? Join Chris and Selim, two HubSpot solution partners with 25 years in the industrial and manufacturing space, as they explore the intersection of these two worlds. Through interviews with experts from both ecosystems, they will attempt to bridge the gap in the largest market we know today.
This podcast is an independent production by Conveying Your Message and is not affiliated with or endorsed by HubSpot. The views, opinions, and positions expressed by the hosts and guests are theirs alone and do not reflect the views, opinions, or positions of HubSpot Incorporated. Any HubSpot employees appearing as guests on this podcast are not representing HubSpot in any official capacity and are sharing their own personal opinions.
Welcome to Sprockets Gears, the unofficial HubSpot industrial podcast.
Welcome in, everybody, to Sprockets and Gears. We're really excited for today's guest. We've got Adam Stahl here from Media Junction. If you could, Adam, just take a minute to share who you are and maybe a little bit about your HubSpot journey.
Sure, thanks. So I'm Adam Stahl. I'm a solutions architect at Media Junction. I'm also a HubSpot certified trainer. I'm also a HubSpot Academy bootcamp instructor as well, currently for the Discovery Call bootcamps. I have been on the HubSpot platform for 8 or 9 years now. I started client-side or internal as a user and got introduced to HubSpot and fell in love with it and realized doing things in HubSpot was my favorite part of my day, and so I moved over to the agency side, so HubSpot could be more a part of my day.
Awesome. HubSpot has a tendency to do that, doesn't it? And that was that internal user was in the manufacturing space, yeah?
A tidbit in manufacturing and then also in IT.
Cool. Awesome. So let's just get started. So one of our goals with this show is to, educate both, HubSpot ecosystem as it relates to the needs of industrial and manufacturing, and also what an end-to-end platform looks like as we start to move that direction with HubSpot. So let's start with, what does the phrase customer platform mean to you?
Yeah, so I think that's even something that's evolved over even the past few months here, where I've heard terms also even like front office software or ecosystem or platform. I think interestingly, as we're talking about it in this space, thinking back to my time in manufacturing, I remember literally having to go to different desks and computers or systems to run different applications because it was a bit more of an all-in-one experience with a smaller office team, larger on the floor team. So it was, I have to run UPC codes over here. I have to run clamshell inserts over here. I have to, do marketing blasts on this Windows 98 machine. So whereas I think the customer platform consideration there, I think is more of this consolidation and bringing under a single umbrella for greater visibility and unity across those tools, those platforms, those efforts, where, previously I feel like we were in a case of, there's a lot more of best of breed solutions, or we have one thing to do one thing. A Constant Contact or a MailChimp is built for email automation. Our, Sage is built for, or geez, even back then it was, what was it? I can't remember now. Sage or Peachtree, is built for invoicing or similar, or order tracking, or product line items or similar. Where I think now we're seeing much more of a horizontal approach versus having those multiple verticals, even siloed. Like we're talking about the breaking down silos on teams. We're breaking down silos, I feel like, across the tech stack and in software as well, which is a long walk for a short drink of water there to say I think it's more so a unified platform of those tools or efforts or things you have to do related to your customers, both internal, hey, I need to be, I want to be tracking insights and contact information and how to get a hold of my customers and what they've been doing lately, as well as more so self-serving for the customer. How does the customer interact with us, whether that's a e-commerce storefront or a self-serve portal or similar.
I love that that you mentioned the horizontal thinking, because we're young HubSpot partners, and when we joined the ecosystem, we noticed that there's a lot of specialization in the HubSpot partner ecosystem. A lot of partners are either like RevOps specialists, or like we're a marketing agency that also does HubSpot, or we're sales coaches and we do HubSpot. And when you start thinking about cross hub solutions, suddenly you are able to do some really amazing things. So yeah, we look forward to the customer platform becoming, more of a common understanding for the HubSpot ecosystem, so we can actually deploy those solutions to our customers. Adam, I have been a marketing operations specialist internally, and I have faced this exact scenario where we have 4 websites and we're using a free CMS, which is WordPress. And I come into my manager's office with a quote for HubSpot CMS. And they look at this and tell me, why are we paying money for a CMS? We have WordPress. And at that point, it was my fault. I didn't really present the case correctly. But now I'm thinking like this is a no-brainer. So like, why is it so prevalent out there? And can you just explain to us what is the benefit of HubSpot CMS?
Sure. And for some context on my journey as well too. So I even used to be there as well. So as an internal, marketing department contributor, I started when we started on HubSpot. It was the capital business name website, capital W website is on WordPress. Oh, and you can have your marketing sandbox over here in HubSpot. You can do your emails, you can do your landing pages, you can do but there was something royal, if you will, about the flagship website. No, like that's over here. It's this monument. We've built it to be to stand against any strong storm, and to generally talk to many things generally, and to touch all buttons that we can without going deep into any buttons or conversations. And we'll look at it every 3 to 5 years. But then I also had to have the same conversations. The more I used HubSpot, for me, actually, what it was I started seeing like our traffic and organic performance on all of our HubSpot-based pages and HubSpot-based efforts, getting closer to that hockey stick growth where our website was a bit more staggering. And to your point, like even though we made in my time there, my first few years there, we actually did 2 different WordPress updates, and even then, from a usability standpoint, like a customization, a speed to execute on changes I'd want to have made or similar, having to switch brain into WordPress and even like configuring WordPress custom to be as close as I could, the horse still ended up being a camel. And so I had to have that same conversation. Now, granted, this was 6 years ago or something like that. So, hey, CMS Pro, I think fits for these benefits. In our case too, security was a big part of it too, and that from an IT perspective and security being like front of mind, like, hey, this is a secured platform, things like backups, things like management of that, things like SLL selection similar. It's like all under one umbrella and centrally managed, versus in something like a WordPress, and this isn't a knock against WordPress, but it is inherently rather modular or open source or connected, disconnected, or loosely tied together, versus kind of this horizontal umbrella platform we kind of talked about related to, like a customer platform or customer facing platform. And so I was able to make that case for that and some other reasons, like, things like maintenance costs. Hey, we have to be paying our IT person to be managing the backups of the WordPress site and the uptime and similar, but then you have the marketing team handling content, and it kind of creates that siloing again, where you go to any business and say, who handles your website? And you are presented an onion. Well, there's, marketing handles this layer, IT handles this layer, even operations maybe handles this layer. So if you're already using a platform like a HubSpot, being able to have that under that single platform, that single ecosystem, that single experience, it gives more control back to the marketing or revenue department or marketing department, depending on what your layout is. We talked kind of about breaking down those verticals or those silos. It is inherently making it a bit more horizontal, or at least having access to more party members, and also likely, possibly, you're going to have to do your own math, but likely reducing some operations costs, likely maybe reducing some admin costs or considerations as well. And so, to your point, Selim, it's a cost, but it actually might be a cost savings when we look at it not in a vacuum of, oh, well, I'd be paying X a month additionally for something I already have free, but if it's costing us this much to upkeep the free thing, we're more efficient where I can, hey, I can execute. We have teams at, these work rates that can do it, as opposed to maybe having to keep on a specialist, or you find a plugin you love and then it no longer supports your core and then you have to start weighing that or similar. And then interestingly too, and this might be one of the better kept secrets with HubSpot, they put a big effort into, over the past year or so, actually having a free entry level of CMS Hub now, so it can be in that conversation. And I think it's something, I don't know if it's not like shit. Like, I got really hyped about that. Like, if I were to build an Adam brand site today, which, sometimes late at night on a weekend or something, I get real hyped about. So it's like, what? I'd build it in HubSpot, especially on the free CMS Hub.
Yeah, like a CMS like WordPress shifts the burden of making sure your security, your backups, and everything is on your team. And you are reminding me about a lot of conversations that I was having with IT, and this is one of the reasons why I became very friendly with IT, because every single time we need to do something with domains or look at PHP broke, or like the site is down, what's going on? I waltz all the way back to IT. I'm like, hey, stop everything. The website's down. Like, let's. So yeah, I feel you on that one. Yeah, that is why I didn't do the right pitch at the time, because I did not present the fact that this is not just a free versus a premium solution. This is shifting the power from having IT have to deal with these things to giving the opportunity for marketers to be holistically, in charge of the website.
Yeah, and I think like when it's, even though now there is a free, version, which is great. Like when there wasn't, it was like security and maintenance was off. Like for me, it was a clear enough value to be able to show like, yeah, this thing over here really isn't free, right? We're having to do all this work, and there's so many like WordPress maintenance, services out there just to support it, to help you quantify it. Often, sometimes more than the cost of some of the CMS Hub options. But then as we start to increase, the investment in CMS Hub, right? Let's say enterprise, that's where you define like the value, like what valuable things, is, and why is it valuable to the organization? Because in most cases we're talking about things that we've never even thought we could do, right? So we didn't even think, like one of my favorite things was being able to create themes and modules and templates and put it in the hands of a subject matter expert and say, no, instead of like sending me the Word doc for the page, I'm just going to take 15 minutes, show you how to create the page in HubSpot that looks very much like a Word doc. And now when we're done, we have a web page instead of having to go back and forth. So if you could, a lot of that is based on themes and modules. And I think that's kind of like, the superpower infrastructure. If you just, define for our audience, like what are themes and why should they be like a requirement of your CMS?
Yeah, and so theme has likely several different meanings depending on what system you're used to using or where you would be coming from, but specifically related to HubSpot, and I would say even conceptually, capital T theme in HubSpot is basically a full unified package of defaults and standardized assets that contains things like settings. So for example, if you have a brand kit or some brand standards, you can bake those into your theme defaults. So hey, whenever I make a new XYZ ABC, it has our blue on it, it has our green on it, it has our typeface. I don't have to think about that every time, and I also don't have to go into like style sheets to deal with that. And those themes then, those elements of the themes are applied to all of the pieces that come with it. Typically that is the next level down would be templates. And so at a HubSpot level, templates include things like landing page templates and website templates. Some themes, depending on which one you buy, might also come with semi-branded email templates. Those are treated a little separately and aren't necessarily governed by the theme necessarily. So trying to stay away from fringe cases here. And in HubSpot, we use templates as a one-to-many. So a template is a way for you to get your kind of ready to go soup base or soup stock, if you will, where, I know if I load up a template, it's going to get me probably 80 or 90% of the way I need to be for a page or an asset just by clicking one button. And then usually it's just more so a matter of like adjusting content. Or in the event we have to do something a little more maybe custom on a certain page, and custom not being a scary word here, but just, I just need to personalize it a bit more than this template we have that, to save time, already gets me 80% there with the colors I want, the branding I want, logos and content in the right locations. We might just need to apply additional or remove some modules, where the modules also are the building blocks that form this Lego blueprint, if you will, on those pages and in those templates. So for those of you not familiar with it in HubSpot, and then the theme, again, also trickles down to that. So I know, hey, maybe we might need an additional left image and right text, module here because we have a little more to say. It's just a matter of adding in that block to the page. It doesn't impact the template. The template is just used to set our soup base, and maybe use veggie soup base to make chicken noodle soup, and or maybe some sort of like other bouillon or French onion soup or similar. So like even though it's a standard stock, it gets us most of the way to that next thing we want to make in a way that we know is approved, repeatable, scalable, improves that time to actually get that page stood up, to get things activated or published, and keeps it also within your standards, right? So, we talked about in some free CMS platforms, sometimes it can feel like you're aiming for the horse and you just always end up with the camel because you're using a lot of things that are close enough and you're squeezing them together. You end up with an oval instead of the circle, but broadly speaking, it's probably good enough. But the amount of effort it took you to squeeze that down to the oval, you could have used less effort to actually get the circle out of it, with things like your templates, your themes, which all get rolled out in a single. I am going to use the word purchase here with HubSpot, but HubSpot does have free and paid themes. As someone that's been part of, I'm going to use a very specific phrasing, been a part of development teams that have made them, though I am not myself a developer, which perhaps even speaks to like how accessible some of these things are. So I know enough code from making like GeoCities fan sites back in the days for like, I don't know, Power Rangers and Gundam and stuff to like muck around on something and probably break it or like change a hex code color here or there or similar. But I can't like build out a full web page in code alone, but I can understand it enough, especially with the tools in a platform like a HubSpot, to impart the strategy on it. Or to your point, Chris, we can empower, hey, are you using HubSpot for your landing pages or even email? Well, then you can create web pages. It's the same, what you see is what you get editor. It's all the same screens and functionality and elements you're used to. HubSpot just separates them in the menu, and there's some other back-end considerations, but to paint with a simplified brush stroke there, you're already equipped with the ability to do it. It's just, it looks a little different. I mean, there's a few other considerations, and it's stored somewhere different. But we talked about customer platform or that horizontal. It's the same tools used to create just somewhat different things, but with the same processes too. Whereas I remember going back to like manufacturing, even early IT, it was not the case because you had different software. It's like, well, I have to build emails in, at that time, Constant Contact. So I'd have to like switch on the Constant Contact part of my brain. Okay, but I have to pull this list maybe from our CRM, which at the time, I think right when I started was like Marketo. before we switched to HubSpot, because that was the first decision they had me make. And then, oh, if I need to update what happened here, I have to go into like, I think it was like Act. I don't remember what we're using by then. So, and it's all different processes, systems, appearances of systems, and you have to like keep those segments of your brain, and that pause is lost time. The pause of that switching, needing to be an expert across all of these, can be challenging. It can obviously be done, but thinking of the cost of efficiency.
There's one thing to note that you mentioned that people might not have gleaned on. Once we joined the HubSpot community, everyone is happy to help and everyone is providing value first. But you will find situations in the business world where you commissioned someone to make your website, and then they come back with a website that you cannot edit, you cannot maintain. And if you want to do even a single, word change, now you have to pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to change this on the website, and then you get an invoice for it. The fact that these themes empower internal marketing teams to be able to keep the site alive and up to date and make it a tool, make it more of a tool and less of a billboard that you update once every 3 years, like you said. That's why I feel themes are a must-have, and not like the dev work happens at the theme level, and then your website is not a hostage anymore.
So when you've like introduced this to, let's call them the web gatekeeper, like what are some of the challenges or maybe aha moments that they have? Because in my experience, it's been like, the thing that gets in the way of scalability is like what you just mentioned, where if it is one person managing, they know where they have to go to get the stuff, to get the information, and then make sure the links are connected. There's no missing links, or if there is a missing link, they know exactly how to troubleshoot it. As soon as you try to delegate to other people, like it just doesn't work, obviously. So that's why it does become like, okay, if I want to fix anything, I have to go to this one person every time. Maybe it's just one of their hats, so they don't always have time. It's not a priority. So it's scary for them, obviously, too, because these systems are fragile. One of my favorite things about HubSpot that seems to be different from other systems, that it's not so fragile that if you change one thing over here, it's going to bring the whole system down. But so when you're talking to maybe somebody who's used to that responsibility, maybe they take pride in that responsibility too, like what do you talk about when it comes to this is why it's okay to kind of empower the people around you to participate in this process?
And that's a great thing to consider, because I think that gets overlooked much as how, or sometimes overlooked, I should say, much as how even the tools themselves where, we're talking about, oh, well, as a line item perspective, the website might be, if it's on, a free service provider, say, oh, it's a free line item, it doesn't cost me anything. Well, yeah, there's actually not hidden or maybe unseen or line item considerations there are in this space too, whereas for as much as the marketing, I'm going to just generally say likely the marketing team is maintaining at least the content, or I'll say the front-facing elements of your respective web platform. That may be different in your respective team, but again, broad brush stroke here. Likely your marketing team is charged with handling, and even right there, like I made a separation there of the front end of your website, but they likely have limited either capability to handle or permissions or access to handle back-end elements of your website. And then much on the same flip side, then when they're making a ticket to IT, your internal IT team is also a Swiss Army knife in that regard, where they're likely hyper focused, or they're much of their bandwidth or their day or their role or responsibilities on servicing likely your users or maybe your customers as well, depending on the type of setup you have. Yes, they can likely do those web things, but likely it's also not their core focus. It's like, yeah, I can do parts of it. Much as like a Swiss Army knife, like, yeah, it has like tiny scissors in it, but like scissors, like an actual full set of scissors, can work better because it's specific design for it, and that's its daily function. What we're doing is we're making by changing that consideration, you're making every challenge into paper, for lack of a better term, like from that scissors perspective. Hey, we know we have scissors here, but we have challenges that might not always be cuttable by scissors. Well, let's make every challenge, beatable by scissors, and then we can focus on just empowering or getting a really great pair of scissors. And then you don't have the need for the multi-tool that can kind of do bits of everything, or you have less of a need for the multi-tool that it can kind of do everything pretty well. But when it comes to different areas, okay, then we have blockers. It's okay, well, how many times in a meeting have you had to say, oh, yeah, we're launching this new thing, or we need to put a banner up. Probably a very common scenario when COVID, really first hit, where I feel like every site likely had to put up either some sort of COVID or pandemic response page or banner or message or outreach there. For someone in a HubSpot platform like we were, like that was, put a one-line banner, drop this module here, spin up a page, link it in the nav, like one person, one team. It didn't have to go out to anybody. It didn't have to become like a focus group of teams from multiple disciplines all in a room to just get a page and maybe a banner set up with a link. But if you have if you have a siloed system systems as part of your tech stack there, then what that becomes is, to your point, Chris, then that meeting then becomes, okay, yeah, well, I can write the content and then we'll sync up with insert IT personnel here, and they'll likely have to, research, okay, and then, yeah, how do I do this in this specific system? What has changed? Because it's not their day-to-day likely. They're going to have to get caught up on the last time they did this. Who knows the last time they were in, like, even if you have to go to something like a DNS level record, potentially, unlikely, but potentially, it's not always their day-to-day. And so that you tend, those meetings then become, I'll sync up with so-and-so, I'll sync with so-and-so. To your point, Chris, that's also probably not their highest priority. Like, even though it's maybe being in this case pushed down to you, it's like, well, I understand, but like we have this fire here, or this server needs this here, or something. Like IT's focus likely also isn't the website, much as marketing's focus isn't necessarily the back end infrastructure of the website. So having those conversations can look like, hey, I know this is a small part of what you cover sometimes. Would love to bring you into this more. And actually, if this is something you are interested in, to your point, Chris, like, hey, you take pride in this part of it, I can actually now bring you in deeper in something like a HubSpot, because you can push further into it with less effort because it's more accessible and less fragile, to your point, Chris. Or on the flip side, on the marketing side, it can work the other way too. Like, hey, like someone like me, I have both an IT and a marketing background. And so like, hey, I have a little bit more comfort level pushing into things like the domain settings, like default HTML, URL redirects and things like that, which are likely necessary things and like UTM codes and such, like things that are likely necessary to run your marketing efforts, but might be considered more like MarTech. Though that's even, I'd say maybe getting a little, like that term is almost like inbound marketer, I think, a bit now, because of that horizontal, unified approach to marketing and revenue operations at large now. But, there's still a bit of a differentiation there, to your point, like, oh, well, I'm really passionate about content. I don't touch the technology. Okay, well, by blending the system, or by having this holistic system, I can just give you, hey, here's this page template. It's staged. Pop your content in and just hit publish. Or if you're afraid to hit publish, just send me a Slack and I'll do it in a minute. And then I'll train you on it. So you have that confidence level. For your IT person, it's, hey, if you want, I don't just have to make a ticket for you to like connect a domain, and also actually to then do like speak in specific HubSpot. I don't necessarily need to make several tickets to make subdomains. Hey, we decided we want to start creating a knowledge base or a wiki. Okay, well, I can just spin up a subdomain in the system. Like, you already granted me the permissions, just we have to do it. And to your point, it's not a fragile system. So something that catches, I do HubSpot onboardings as well. So HubSpot onboardings, when someone is completely new to the platform or net new to one of the hubs, you have to be onboarded. I know y'all know that, but just, clear is kind. So one of the most common things is, especially when I have customers coming in with Marketing Hub, one of the first things we have to do is connect your domain. And then one of the second things we do is, like, hey, let's set up a landing page. And a lot of questions I get, and a lot of times are like, oh, well, what happens if like the site goes down? Or what happens if I have to, it's like, oh, like, backup's actually built into this page. Like if you goof something, just hit revisions, just go to the last one you did. Whereas I remember in the split days when we were WordPress HubSpot, like to your point, like what if it goes down? Well, we have to, because this one bulb burned out, we have to replace the entire chandelier. No, like we can just replace the bulb. It's okay. We don't have to rip it out of the ceiling because we have to do like a full site backup and refresh, and it becomes this monster effort versus, oh yeah, I definitely left placeholder text in that. Like, let me just, okay, hey, we're good. And the staging's built in too. Like, oh, well, what about do we need to stand up a staging domain, or do we need to set up a test website? It's like, hey, you can, I mean, there's staging tools available at some levels, but also, hey, just save it in the page and don't publish it. And if you hate it, go to revision.
I remember very vividly that my marketing manager came to me and saying, the president is on the phone. He's at a golf club with a client, and he went to show the clients the website, and the website's down. Go fix it. And I went and started digging, and I'm like, oh, the PHP is not updated, but we're on a drag and drop tool that doesn't have the ability to update. We have to rip out the website and update the PHP and come back. And then we went to our hosting, and the hosting was like, no, you're on the service that cannot edit its own, server side configuration. And I came back with an answer of, well, I can't fix it. We have to rip out the website, make a new one. And I won't continue that conversation because you can imagine what happened then. But like, yeah, that stuff never happens if this was on HubSpot CMS, because we don't have to think about it. HubSpot is dealing with that on the back end. And if at any point you need to, pop the hood, you're not popping the whole hood. You're just, checking a couple of settings, and you're back up and running. So I really appreciate the moment I was introduced to HubSpot CMS and having the right theme installed. Now I went from hating the fact that I had to update 5 websites at the time versus now being very enthusiastic to figure out more solutions that involve the websites. And which brings us to one thing that Chris showed me when we were back at the last company, which is HubDB, and the things that HubDB can unlock for a website on HubSpot CMS. I used to be an engineer. I love spreadsheets. I used to do a lot of stuff on spreadsheets. Now I can take spreadsheets and websites and do amazing things. That gets me excited. But I know, Adam, you've been doing a lot with HubDB. So tell our listeners, what is HubDB, and let them discover the world where dynamic content can happen with a click of a button.
Ooh. So do love me some HubDB. I am a HubDB fan. I think it's one of HubSpot's least heralded but hidden gem tools, to the point where, at time of recording, it's buried in the navigation along with files. And it's it doesn't belong there. That's not accurate to what this helps you do. And tying a thread across a lot of our conversations, something that's really neat about HubDB is I think it further explores the empowerment and adoption of the system by users, because different skill sets can still apply their knowledge or experience to tools in HubSpot to get something moving. Like to your point, Selim, what you mentioned was, I'm used to working in spreadsheets. And that's a conversation I have a lot too when we talk about HubDB. So HubDB is a tool in HubSpot that at this time of recording, I feel like it's important to note, because this even confused me at first as a HubSpot solutions provider and working at a HubSpot solutions provider. True HubDB functionality is included currently at the CMS Pro and above levels and Marketing Hub Enterprise levels. They may have updated this on the site and in the product catalog, but formerly it did used to say it was also included on Marketing Hub Pro, and it would show up, but you don't get the dynamic content we're about to talk to. It's usable, I think, in emails separately versus what we're about to talk about. So just noting that caveat there, and that may change, but I know, again, even as someone that's been in marketing for 12 years, on HubSpot for 8, I tell a client oh yeah, you got Marketing Hub Pro, it says you're fine, and then it's oh no. apparently we need an update here. But what HubDB is, it allows you to, in a spreadsheet form, so rows, columns, cells with data in them, empower things like website pages, landing pages, or we talked about those individual modules. So actually very specifically, we talked about themes, carry down functionality to templates, and templates are built of the Legos called modules. You can use data captured in a HubDB table to, I like using automagically, create pages that you don't have to touch. And so it's a really great feature for use cases where maybe you have similar looking pages. So the look or the layout of a page or content is always similar, but the content is changing. So a common use case would be like a resource center listing. So for example, today, depending on the way you use it, it might be like a single page with a bunch of links. Would probably be like, your walking stage. Header 2, what it's about. Link. Maybe your walking stage there is. I've seen a lot of companies using maybe a local module on a page, and so we have to define that now as a local module, thereby not connected to HubDB. Where maybe you're using field groups, like every time I have a new piece of content I need listed, I just make a new field group, make my edits in there, but I still have to jump into the page and do something in the page editor of HubSpot. The HubDB Dynamic Resource Center, for example, or knowledge base, or not knowledge base, or learning center, or whatever term you may use, allows you to instead, in a spreadsheet format that you can literally alter in Sheets or Excel or insert your spreadsheet editor here, you can do probably like 90% of the setup of what is technically going to become multiple web pages, or at least one dynamic web page with listing that you might go, whoa. You can do that in spreadsheet form, where you can say, this column is going to represent a page title, this column is going to represent this content section or similar, built out in a spreadsheet, import it into HubDB, and then you just have to have a developer connect that to a module. That's already likely skinned or developed or designed, though there may be a little bit of dev work here. But whereas, kind of like we've been talking about in other systems, where the effort there might be like 90% development work and then 10% of you doing content after the fact and you waiting on that to happen, you could build out, for lack of a better term, something like dynamic pages, or again, I'm just going to stick with the use case here of like a resource center listing page. So, hey, bunch of cards. This represents all of our content across our blog and our white papers and our ebooks and our downloadables, all built out in a just like a spreadsheet you'd use for expenses or your CRM import data across any given system. Put it into the table, and then have those listings made in that 90% first of, hey, I'm doing all my content and structure, and then I just need you to import this into HubDB, which you can also do yourself to make the table, and then I just need you to connect it and maybe change the way the user interacts with it. But it becomes less of a conversation there of, oh, we have to set up the whole scaffolding, and then you come in, versus like, look, I built everything, I just need you to like connect the electric, or like connect the water, the piping's here, I just need stuff flowing through it. And that's even just a small use case. That's like a single page, but I mean, this can scale out to actually making individual website pages as well. So someone that maybe just likes real straightforward formatted data represented as it is, but couldn't tell you a hex code from I don't know, I can't think of another series of numbers like a phone number. I'm trying to think ones that would also have the pound or hash symbol in front of them, can almost essentially build websites pages, because it can also dynamically or automatically create pages without ever touching the page editor. Someone might see the page editor and go, website page. It's like, okay, but what if it's just data? What if I show you it like this? And then, hey, you can build out almost a whole website potentially, or microsite. I'm going to use the term microsite. We built out a fair amount of microsites out of HubDB with, again, similarly formatted content, just some small changes to it in a spreadsheet. You don't have to be a web developer or even a marketer, really.
My favorite use of HubDB as a content manager is the fact that now I don't have to go to each product page and update the related resources section whenever we have a new data sheet or a new sales sheet or or we have this new case study. All you have to do is, if you've set up your pages correctly with a HubDB table that is filtered based on what product, what topic, etc., based on specific filters, now your content manager, all they have to do is just add another line item in that HubDB with a link to the specific resource, and now suddenly your all your website is up to date with the latest resources. It's exactly like you described. Someone who's not maintaining the website can still be maintaining the website just through a spreadsheet.
Yeah, and that's where like it changes from 90% development and 10% execution to like 80% strategy, 10% development, and then anybody can execute at the end. Like, it doesn't have to be specific people that know everything about each different system, right? Because I know most of us have been there where it's like, what a world it would be if we could just change this one thing in this one place and now everything gets updated. This is that world. Like, it's not as costly as you think. It's not as time intensive. It doesn't require a team of developers, to build this, monster that requires teams to then support it and maintain it. It's here right now. And my favorite, because it's easy for us to sometimes point at like, well, buyers want the Amazon experience. We need to, figure out how to give it to them. But then, Amazon, one of the biggest companies in the world, obviously they have resources to develop this system that, shows you whatever you might like this next to wherever you are in the system. It must be some kind of just elaborate development plan, and just now you have access to that. And an example, like once it clicked for me, especially when departments outside of marketing, like upselling, cross-selling, customer retention, like being able to do something like, okay, you have a product page, and this product, in order to use this product, here's the products or like consumables that you need to go with that. And having that same section over in the, Academy page where it's teaching you how to do the task related to that product. And it just shows you there, like, okay, these are the things that you need. And now you click on that, and maybe that takes you to the store where the same thing. And instead of having to go into the e-commerce site and the LMS and, the precious corporate company website, right? All these places to maintain it, like, is just gone. And that's really where, that's why you want to empower the users to make this stuff. But then as the admin or the web manager, you're the one in charge of the HubDB and the places where, hey, as long as this stuff is right, we have other people in a position to win. So one of my favorite things is when you can empower a salesperson to use a web page almost exactly like they do a PowerPoint slide deck, right? And just the power of being able to show a prospect like a nice looking web page with their logo on it. It looks like you put a lot of work in, but really in HubSpot, it's like maybe a 5-minute task to just clone this page and, put a new logo on it. It's just really powerful. And those are the kinds of experiences that really can change the game and differentiate you, customer experience wise. And it's impossible to do when there's only one person or two people that are very focused on security and maintenance and IT and, making sure the system goes down versus a salesperson or a service person or, other people that they know what they need. They know exactly what they need to provide the kind of experience they want. And now you empower them to just do that without, having to go through all these layers of reviews and, stuff like that. So I love, like, once I figured out that's what, HubDB was, it just became like, oh my gosh, like everything is possible now. It's great to watch that aha moment, happen with other people too.
Yeah, you both touched on, I think, a great point too, which, gets overshadowed sometimes too. It's not just like, okay, like I can stand up one thing maybe faster, but to your point, it's like, well, actually, we can be using these elements across so many different things, and if we just need to your point, Chris, push a button to turn them off. Say, for example, you have a subject matter expert that you've been, using content across here, there, everywhere. They're on your About Us page, they're on their team page, they have a personal page, they're a blog author. I remember a time where I had to physically take it. Okay, somebody left. You have to take that apart piece by piece. Inventorying where all those pieces are. They might be, if you're feeding it in from a dynamic central location like HubDB, you can just click maybe unpublish on their row, and you're done. And then maybe they come back. They're a boomerang, right? You just click it again, and they're back.
Chris, you're muted.
And I love that you brought up that point, because that specific scenario is sometimes that fear of how much maintenance something is going to be later on. It stops us from doing the thing that we know would be a great customer experience. And now you don't have to worry as much, right? And that's where, like, the strategy up front is important. Like, in understanding that, okay, we want to invest in putting this person's, face all over the place, because we want our customers to know who they're going to work with, when they're going to work with them, why they should trust them, right? But what happens, when there's a change? Are we going to have to, call in like the support team or call in the agency to now take it down everywhere? Like, no, you won't, right? And so since you won't, it makes sense to invest in that work up front. Alongside that, we think the other unsung tool that usually is working in tandem, with this is the power of the CMS just being directly on top of, or like natively integrated, whatever you want to call it, with the CRM, objects, and the way these things can play. Again, it's another case of you have these walled gardens that don't have to be like invisible to others, but you can permission the system appropriately to where the data not only is visible to your internal teams, but you make it visible to external customers. And when we talk about self-service situations, right, this is where, man, I love telling people that the beauty of this is really just imagine any piece of data that you put into the CRM is now easily surfaceable on a web page. So take us through, like, how you view the CMS plus CRM connection, and how you explain that to people, and how that works and why that's powerful.
Sure. So I find a lot of times the best case to anchor it in some cases is like an actual use case, because even with HubDB too, right now I kind of liken HubDB to AI in some ways. Like, AI can do so many things, and there's a temptation to, let's use AI to do XYZ versus what is it we want to accomplish, and can this make it either more efficient, more effective, or more impactful in using that tool. In a similar way here, though perhaps less so because it's a bit more defined. For example, like a sales rep, I'm going to a call with insert prospect here, maybe they're a little down the line. What that experience might look like for a salesperson then going into that call to prep for that call is they can just go to that contact's record and see everything they've ever done. Okay, I see they've been to this page, this page, this page. They've been to this page 100 times. They downloaded this thing. They looked at this thing. They opened this email, not that email, as opposed to, and they're empowered to just do that. Hey, I'm right on the record, and if we're branching that even too, you can just place a call from the record too in HubSpot, but that's a little neither here nor there. But to say also, I do see they looked at our pricing page, so maybe I can talk about pricing heading to this call, or won't upset the apple cart if I mention pricing potentially, or, depending on where they are in their journey there. And you don't have to like send an email out or schedule a sync with maybe like someone in marketing ahead of time. So, hey, I'm going to a call with so-and-so, tell me what they've done on the website. You don't have to have that separate information. And then on top of that too, you are empowered to then, especially with some of the HubSpot tools, also like bake in elements of it too. Like say you maybe made a landing page for this client because I don't know, it's some big thing. It's you really want to impress them, and it's accessible because you're using CMS Hub and Marketing Hub, where you can just spin up a landing page for them, just pop your content in here and just make it private, just share it just with them, kind of a thing, and kind of wow them with that experience. Hey, did they view our little custom page that we made for them? Oh yeah, and it's not some gargantuan effort where yeah, we can do, it's like I'm literally shrugging my shoulders. Oh yeah, we can do that if you want. I don't know if it's best practice. Let's talk about our best practices or a sprawl standpoint. But and then for marketing too, you can serve different content or route people based on what they have or haven't seen or have or haven't done. Hey, if they have, seen this page or clicked on a link in that page, then we should definitely target them with this email, or target's not a great word there, but perhaps to provide this info based on what they already looked at, or if they've already seen this, show them this instead, because I don't want to keep showing them the same thing, because they're going to say, look, yeah, I know you've pitched your one ebook to me 17 times, but I got the ebook on my first download. Or, maybe you have maybe a single page where maybe you have two different offers for your returning customers or net new customers. Hey, well, with smart content, you can have one page that says, if they are lifecycle stage of customer, show them this text, but if they are with this promo code, and if they are a prospect, show them this one instead. So it takes down. I think, Chris, you made the point in HubDB of single piece or single tool used in multiple ways, whereas that might look like in a previous setup, we have to have a page for customers, we have to have a page for prospects, we have to have a page for insert other segment or bucket here. You can consolidate into, here's our insert initiative here page, and we can use things like customization, personalization, smart content, because we have that data in our database, our CRM, which is in HubSpot, to provide a better tailored, personalized experience to them that resonates with them, as opposed to gives them pause or is perpendicular to what they were assuming, and creates that dissonance.
Adam, all of this is great. We love CMS Hub here, but every time we try to look up CMS Hub education, HubSpot has done an amazing job from the early days with inbound methodology and all their hubs on the academy. Education is one of their pillars. However, around CMS, it seems to be a lack of education, other than that if you want enterprise, it costs $1,200 a month. So why is that?
I think potentially there's a couple layers to that, and understandably, I'm not HubSpot, so I can't specifically say, but to your point, you think HubSpot, you likely immediately think the Marketing Hub, the Sales Hub, the Service Hub. Oh, and then there's also Ops Hub and CMS Hub, and now Commerce Hub as well. It's one of those now, I would say, other category hubs, even though it's kind of been a central pillar one for some time now. It's not like a new add-on or something that's tacked on. I think part of that is because there is some degree of duplication, isn't right, but there's a lot of shared tools and things unlocked between Marketing Hub service levels and CMS Service Hub levels. I think to your point, there's also some there could be some greater maybe clarity or education around the difference between landing pages and website pages in HubSpot. Again, as someone that also does HubSpot onboardings, that's a common area of education growth for folks coming into HubSpot and new, the tool looks the same, they're nested on the same place. I thought I was building a landing page, I was actually building a website page, or vice versa. And unlike some of the other hubs too, I think because there's a bit more potential, I'll say external maybe overlap with other things. So for example, in HubSpot, they have a more friendly, if you will, or ready-made WordPress integration. It's right in your settings. You don't necessarily have to go the long way around. HubSpot's kind of welcoming you to and guides you through installing the WordPress plugin as a kind of one of those HubSpot approved, if you will, plugins, or it has its own HubSpot branded knowledge base article, as opposed to you don't have to go to a WordPress one or something similar. So I think there's an element that as well of there's maybe folks coming in for a marketing use case where, maybe they, similar to my journey, came in for a marketing use case, had WordPress, over time just fell in love with HubSpot, and thereby, and I can bring it under this umbrella and get even more actionable insights, or analytics are similar. So I think because there's greater maybe support for other areas there, like again with the HubSpot or with the WordPress split, you can, in theory, throw the HubSpot tracking code in a lot of other different places and get some degree of similar functionality, some, not all, but some, by just implementing the tracking code. And that's a disservice to say like, just throw in the tracking code, it's the same thing. It certainly is not, but in that it will get you some tracking, it will get you some analytics, it'll start detecting your forms. You can embed things in HubSpot in external places, which you can't really do with features of the other hubs. Like I can't send an external email for, marketing tool email from a different tool, or, more readily pull in actionable data in a similar fashion as you could with some of these features. And we touched on it as well, but like even the idea that there's free website tools now, I think is a wild thing that like, I don't know why like there's not more hype around that. As I said, like if I was building a personal brand website today, granted, I'm not at the moment, and I have a comfort level in HubSpot, I'm going to use HubSpot. And that's not necessarily a knock against other platforms, but I've already got comfort in HubSpot. I already know I can go grab a free theme. I know there's free website tools, but it is something that like I even find myself like, hey, and there's CMS Hub too. You can consider doing this. It would be these benefits in conversations where it's appropriate, and it might not fit all, but there's even the starter CMS level 2, where if you're not free but you want some more advanced features, I would say with the average website nowadays, and that's a very broad brush to paint with, but if you're a company that has maybe only a few web pages, there's not necessarily a ton of that changes. You can be building landing pages as needed for other things. A use case might even be like a marketing consideration for potentially manufacturing if you don't have an e-commerce arm necessarily, and it's just more so we need like a digital brochure essentially. You probably don't have more than, I think the starter might be like 25, it's 15 or 25 pages. You probably don't have more than 15 or 25 pages. Maybe you're doing heavy trade show traffic, which you can just make landing pages for. You could realistically do something like a marketing hub, size appropriate level, and like, starter on CMS Hub, and then you've got it all under one umbrella. So again, it's going to depend on the use case, but like, I don't think it gets necessarily, to your point, talked about or solutioned from the get-go like some of the other hubs do.
Right. And that's what's interesting for me, because everything you said made sense from a HubSpot to end user perspective, but HubSpot moves so fast. Obviously, where the partners want to pick up the slack, they do with their education, especially like the prospecting tool as an example. You see just all of these videos, and webinars popping up all over the place, just focused on that. Of course, can always count on sales to drive that kind of activity. Why, from a partner perspective, like, why do you think there hasn't been more done there? Because I remember back in 2020, 2021, whenever the starter level dropped, like $25 a month, like the only explanation for that is to start competing with the WordPresses of the world, and like, that the marketplace development's going to come and follow. And so that's when I got really excited. Okay, now CMS is an accessible tool for anybody that shows up, yet it hasn't caught on, within the partner ecosystem. You think it's the same exact reasons, or is there anything else going on there?
I'm wondering if it's part of that is comfort level in it potentially. So, for example, in the agencies I've worked at, we have web focuses, I should say. So it's already in our wheelhouse. So those are conversations we have because we love it. We think you'll love it. These are the reasons why we think you'll love it. I wonder if also, to your point, maybe it's a perception thing. Whereas I wonder, for example, and this is just in my experience so far, but I don't know any clients that just have CMS Hub. I know a lot of clients that have just Marketing Hub. I know a lot of clients that have just Sales Hub. I guess even some that have just Service Hub. But it feels like, whereas maybe those scenarios are a little more like peanut butter and chocolate, like each of these can stand independently and they're delicious on their own, but together they make a delicious, combined peanut butter chocolate treat. I feel like CMS Hub gets more of a reputation as like jelly. peanut butter and jelly is great. I don't know a ton of people just sitting there spooning out jelly and just eating that independently. But I think CMS Hub can stand on its own. For most things, you will likely come to some scenarios where you'll likely want to add something onto it. So I think maybe part of that is maybe that perception that it isn't its own standalone entity yet. Again, like in that peanut butter, chocolate, peanut butter and jelly scenario, like, yeah, it makes a lot of other things better. Hey, jelly on, mint jelly on ham and things like that, or peanut butter and jelly, or, with a nice brie. But I think maybe it has that jelly perception when maybe it is a chocolate or a peanut butter.
I think that's a fair stance, because a lot of the reasons why we get excited about CMS is because it's of its deep integration with the CRM and other HubSpot tools, and making it more than a digital billboard, but making it like a useful tool that your clients and customers and sales teams and marketers can be using. So I do think it's fair that CMS on its own doesn't seem to be as attractive, especially when there are free CMS options out there.
Right.
And part of that too is maybe also the perception of the website itself, right? I think we're still in that in different industries. Like, what is a website? Is it a big old billboard you put up, once every 3 years and you adjust it every other, or is this a revenue driving or revenue influencing 24/7 engine for your business? I think maybe we'll see that more as those conversations evolve, and as we're breaking down silos and kind of flattening those teams into like revenue teams or marketing teams, or more of that collaboration where maybe that's seen more. But I think especially with industries that like the website is something we need to have but not something we leverage, they're inherently not going to necessarily go out and independently buy like a CMS Hub. To your point, I can spin up a free WordPress instance, and because I'm not dealing with it a lot, it's just up there. It's fine. We'll check it out every couple of years to do a big old spring cleaning or something like that. But I think that's part of it too, is like the perception of what the website is, or the value of the website, or the web presence even, or the web content in a company or industry too. I think also to some degree, there's a bit more of maybe like a flow, if you will, of like, if you're using Marketing Hub and you likely probably have a website also, and you fall in love and you get comfortable in Marketing Hub, it makes that CMS Hub transition near seamless, as long as the business case makes sense for you. Because like, I'm already using all these tools, I'm already familiar with all of this reporting, I'm familiar with the workflows, I'm familiar with all I see is opportunity. It's just a matter of activating and actioning upon it. Whereas I feel like maybe if you were going right into CNC, and I'm pausing myself because but I also have the burden of like really enjoying HubSpot and being into it. But I feel like CMS Hub would still probably be approachable if you entered the door at CMS Hub. But again, it's interesting. I really haven't seen that where people are entering the door with CMS Hub.
And that's where
I
think
we hope we can change that.
We can be the change we want to see in the world. Yeah, we can.
Yeah, and we see that as a real opportunity, especially in the manufacturing space, because companies are starting to move towards an understanding of what the website can be or needs to be from their customer's perspective. And like, when there is always some kind of like, WordPress site or homegrown system that everybody has trouble with maintaining or getting changes and they don't understand why, CMS Hub can actually be a new opportunity for HubSpot to, get in the door. So I'd challenge, partners that are listening to this to keep that in mind. One, from that perspective, but two, sometimes like when you try to solve issues, like here's a marketing hub, here's a sales hub, here's a service hub, and the website is not great. We see this, like, you can do a disservice to the customer in trying to like kind of band-aid some things through those other hubs, while not having your website, easily managed or just as agile as you're trying to use these other hubs. Like, it really holds the whole customer experience back, and the CMS Hub can really be that, just bring everything together. And if you think about it from a customer experience platform perspective that kind of goes on top of everything else, that's when the ROI, you start to feel it, a lot more. There's a lot less, we fix this thing over here, but like revenue's not happening. It just kind of has a habit of bringing those things together, which I love. And so those two things together, there is a case to be made for CMS Hub, and it's not as hard as you might think, right? Especially when you really just superpower it with the rest of HubSpot. And so kind of to put a bookend on this like customer platform conversation with CMS Hub is kind of like it's the customer facing piece of the customer platform. And it's just, when you just get to see some of the things that we talked about today and some of the things you think, were pipe dreams now are just at the tip of your fingers, like you get a lot of value for the real cost, compared to the other systems that you might have in play at a business. So this has been awesome. We have lightning, some rapid fire questions to end on for you here. Looking at them now, like they could all be related to CMS Hub, but please answer whatever comes to mind. So first one, most underrated HubSpot tool.
Yeah, I think it has to be HubDB, or if we're talking like, if we're counting it as a tool like the CMS Hub in its entirety, but seeing as that's several tools, I'm going to stick with HubDB for now.
Most overrated HubSpot tool.
Oh, most overrated. Jeez. Can I go with a feature and not a tool?
Sure.
So something that's been a bit of a, it gets me scratching my head sometimes, is like nesting folders in HubSpot. I'd like if there was consistency across all tools to all have subfolders and nesting folder capability. Because like, if we're counting maybe a tool or feature as, oh, you can folder assets. Well, if I can't nest folder assets, there's limited functionality in that.
Most misunderstood HubSpot tool.
Ooh, I'd say maybe again HubDB or CMS Hub. HubDB, again, it's filed under with like files and things like that. I think it's something a lot of people maybe see in their menu and don't action on, because it's like, it's a file or a file manager, or DB, it's a database. I don't deal with databases, but you do.
Your top wish list item for HubSpot.
I guess it'd be cheating to necessarily do nesting folders across the board again. But, based on our conversation today, I think, yeah, I'd like some more fanfare around those more approachable CMS Hub entry capabilities. A wish list, or maybe what I'd love to see in the world is like doing onboardings for CMS Hub. I don't know if I don't think they technically have the onboarding requirement today, but like, I'd love to see, you're onboarding a client just for CMS Hub. Like right now, it's usually treated as part of a custom engagement with an individual solutions provider or something similar.
Wonderful. Some solid answers and a really solid conversation today. We appreciate you so much for stopping by. If somebody wants to learn more about Adam or CMS, or just get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for having me as well. Best place to find me is likely just on LinkedIn, Adam Stahl, and I'm the Adam Stahl at Media Junction. I'm sure there's more than just one Adam Stahl. Or if you are considering HubSpot boot camps in the near future, I'm also in the instructor pod for the HubSpot Academy Discovery Call Bootcamp, so I could potentially see you in class as well.
There you go. And
Chris,
we'll
I just
links.
want to say I love every time we say where can people find you, everybody says LinkedIn. LinkedIn's where it's at.
Yeah. And we'll have links to all that stuff in the show notes. So again, Adam, thanks so much. And we'll see everybody next time.
Thanks for having me.